it, but for the audience who may have never heard your story, who might not know you, can you tell us about the first time that you encountered or came into knowing that the Bigfoot people were real?
When I was 6, my friend and I were playing hide and go seek near a field which was right behind my house, and my friend was off, little distance, and we were kind of like playing like Marco Polo kind of thing, just to find each other, and I kept hearing, like little things, little whispers, little like mimics. I kept thinking it was my friend, but it wasn't my friend. And then they were throwing little stones at me, like little pebble-sized ones, not to hit me or hurt me, but just in my direction to catch my attention. And then, it just like played on from there, like every time I was outside, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Until they came out and actually played with me.
Wow.
Two little ones. There was a bigger one, and then the 2 little ones.
And was the bigger one, do you think, an older sibling, or did you get the sense that it was a parent?
It was a juvie. I'd say maybe 5 to 7 years older than the young ones.
And now, how tall were you, do you think, roughly at this time in your life?
I was a pretty tall kid for my age. So I was probably like, maybe that tall.
All right. And the ones that came out to play with you
tall.
Were the ones that...
They were my size. They were my size.
All right.
They were tiny.
Now, were you alone when they first came out to play with you, or were you with your friend?
I was with my friend, but she didn't see them.
Oh.
She didn't see them.
Tell us about that. What was that like for you and for her?
She went home. So whenever she went home is when they came out.
Oh, okay. I was under the impression that you were both there.
So I was trying to get my attention while I was playing with her and mimicking. But when she went home, 'cause she lived down the road, they would come out.
And just what was that like for you when you, other than the things that led up to that, now you're seeing them.
They were fuzzy looking bear type things and that they were friendly. That's all I thought. I was like, kind of like in shock, but then I was like into fairies and always talking to my make-believe friends and stuff like that, so I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, this is cool, they're hanging out with me. Nothing more,
All right. And what did you remember, like, how you guys played together the first time, or any of the times early on when you first met them? What kind of was it?
Just hide and seek, and then we would roll around and play on each other.
What did they look like?
Fuzzy little bear type things.
And how long did that go on then when you were a kid?
Kind of like humanish faces, but not really.
So, like, no hair on their faces? Did they have hair on their bodies?
No hair on the faces, just the body and the head.
Oh, so,
not too much on the face.
And where was the longest hair on their bodies? Did they have longer hair, or was it all the same on their whole body?
Well, they were small, so their hair was pretty short, but it covered their whole body. I'd say it was maybe like, I don't know, maybe that thick, long around. They were young, so...
Boys, girls? Were they boys or girls?
I don't know. I don't know the sex. I didn't know the sex at the time. I was 6, so...
Yeah, it wasn't probably anything...
It didn't matter to me.
It didn't matter, yeah.
I think the juvie was a boy, though, because he acted a little more like standoffish, watching, protective but watching,
So
standoffish.
how often did you get out and play with them? And what about your friend? Did your friend ever get to see them, or did you? No.
No.
But when
And
you
she
and your
didn't believe me anyway. Her mother thought I was crazy.
and so, but she would still play with you.
She knew I told her about it, but her mother talked her out of her believing me. Like, her mother thought I was crazy.
I got you.
Actually, her mother told her not to play with me after a while.
Oh.
Because I was crazy.
So how did your relationship, if that was the first time that you remember, encountering them, how did your relationship develop with them? Did you only play for a while and then you didn't see them again for years, or was it kind of from then on you were always with them?
Every couple of days I would play with them until I moved.
Did they ever come around your house at night while you were asleep and like tap on your windows or anything?
Because they would move things around and I would leave things for them outside, and then they would move them.
Oh.
And I always left them treats and things. My snack that I brought with me, I left them. I never ate my snack. Because when I went home, I'd say, Mom, I'm hungry. She'd say, didn't you eat your snack? And I'd say, yeah, but I'm still hungry. I didn't want to tell her I was leaving the food outside for them.
Right. What else?
Oh, I'll show you my rock that they gave me.
Oh. That was the timer for today, but I'll take a look at your rock before we go for now. But we'll try tomorrow again. Maybe I'll see if I can get a little bit more time, but we can do it tomorrow, maybe even Friday, depending on what your schedule on Friday is. Because I have my list of questions, and I didn't get into those. That's the intro question I want to use, though, tomorrow, is to have you just kind of talk about that first
There's
experience.
a little nudge out of it.
I can't see it. Oh, there, I saw it for a second. Now, what's that? Is that a rock that they gave you?
This is the rock they gave me
Now, was that when you were a kid or when you were older, recently?
when I was a kid.
Oh, wow. Did you ever look up and see what kind of rock it is? Looks like a skipping stone.
No, but there's a nudge out of it, so they were doing something with it.
Uh-huh.
Scraping something with it, or something. It's not quite done now,
No.
but they gave it to me.
Huh. Like
So I've had it ever since.
in exchange for your many snacks?
In kindness.
In kindness, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right. Peace
Bye.
out. Bye-bye. All right. Hi, everybody. This is Carlos of the Chronicles of Carlos. Again, joined with Valarianna Arto, coming to us live from New York, and I'm out here in Los Angeles. You've shared your first encounters with Sasquatch with us from when you were a child. You also shared with me that they continue to communicate with you. For today's interview, I'd like for you to share how that communication developed since your childhood, and I'd like to ask you some questions about the Sasquatch and their ways. If I ask you something that you're unsure of or that you'd rather not say, just say so. You're being interviewed, not interrogated. Okay? All right. So let's start with how you commune with them. Tell us how it started, how it changed over the years, where it is now, and where you'd like for it to be in the future.
Oh, that's a big question.
It is. Basically, walk us through from where you left off yesterday, talking to us about the early communications were just kind of playing. Walk us through from there.
Okay, so when I finally moved, not far, actually, just a couple of towns away, I kept seeing them as I got older and older and older. Same ones. Actually, it was the the bigger one that was coming to me, not the two smaller ones. It was the bigger one that was always watching me. He was the one who kept coming to me.
But these were the same ones, though, from when you were a child?
Same ones, just a little older now. Because
Okay.
I was growing up, they were growing up. They kept coming to me in my dreams, places I would go, kept seeing their faces, same ones, all the time. I'd move, kept seeing them, up until the point I moved to New Hampshire. Then I really didn't see them too much anymore. I started seeing different ones though. It was kind of like they kind of knew me before I knew them.
Okay.
I would assume they telepathically talk to others because they telepathically talk to me. So I was already welcomed when I moved up there.
Tell us a little bit more about that telepathic kind of communication. Obviously, you said in your dreams, but what about like when you felt like you saw them, or what other, when you're awake, were there any telepathic communications with you when you were in New Hampshire?
Yes. Not with the other ones down in Long Island, but new ones now.
Okay. So
Newer ones now.
So these newer ones, then this was a different, with the first ones that you encountered, there really wasn't a communication per se. It was when you met this new group.
Yes.
Okay. Tell us about that.
I did have a communication with them, but it was more like on a child level.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wasn't too aware of anything then. I just thought they were friendly bears at the time.
Yep.
I mean, I was a kid. Who knew? And I was very inquisitive to begin with, so, and not afraid to approach them. I wound up meeting the second clan up in New Hampshire. Actually, I stumbled upon an old bear den that they were living in.
Okay. That's going to get, I'm going to ask some questions about that later, but that's digging into some of the stuff. And then, now are you currently in New Hampshire, or is that?
No, I'm in New York now.
So,
Upstate New York.
so what happened after you met that second clan till now?
I was there for 15 years, so they were basically on my property, but about 200 yards away. That's where the bear den was.
Oh, wow.
I stumbled upon it walking my dog. She actually pulled me from going towards it.
Your dog?
Yeah, she was part wolf. So she pulled me away, like, she stopped me in my tracks. She stopped in her tracks. Like, she wouldn't go any further. I would try to pull her. But no, she was grounded. She wasn't going any further.
Huh. How about as time went on and you got to know that clan?
Yes. Then she was okay, then I was okay.
Okay.
But anytime, well, she also smelled the bear, too. It was an old bear den.
So it could have been one or the other then.
Yeah. So she was kind of skittish and would pull me back. Like, anywhere I walked with the dog, if she didn't think it was good, she didn't walk down that and didn't want me to.
And then how about today then? You're still communicating with that same group or a new group?
No, I'm with a new clan now.
So is this your third clan total?
I would say this would be my fifth or sixth clan here.
Okay. Oh, so you...
There's 40 different spots I go to around here. They all know me. They all know when I'm coming. I make myself aware. Like, I'm not quiet at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I don't want to, like, spook any other animal that I'm coming on crossed either, so I make myself aware all the time. I'm never quiet. I can't keep my mouth shut.
Well, the story is amazing. I guess that next I have some questions for you about the nature of the Sasquatch. Are you ready for these?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, what I can.
Yeah. Again, only what you're able to answer, or if you're not sure, then just let me know. What is their relationship to us?
Well, they are a fifth dimensional being. They were here first. This was their land in the fifth dimension. There is no relation to us other than that they were at one time fallen and part of the Nephilim. But as time has gone by, with them procreating with other species, that is no longer viable to say. They've crossbred with everything out there.
So you said that
and
they're
other dimensional beings too that have come through as well.
okay. I'm going to ask you about
That's
them.
where the cryptid stuff comes in.
And I'm going to ask you about those again here in a few moments. But you spoke of the fifth dimension. What help us understand that for those of us that don't know more than three dimensions. What's the fourth and what is the fifth dimension?
The fifth dimension is the here and now. It's a free will. It's a free will state of. It's a place where just anything happens, like free will, past and present. There is no future until there is a past and a present together before you can make a future. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, that one's a little deep for me.
Yeah.
Well, what would they currently then? I mean, in the time that you've known them, what would you say that they would like their relationship to be with them? Our relationship to be with them, the human beings. Do they want a relationship with us or not? I mean, they're communicating with some people.
Some of them just want to be left alone. Some of them were slaves at one point, in their time with their own kind, and a higher race than them also, which I would call the elders. They are the highest form in their dimensional time. So they were made into slaves. Also, aliens, they were under contract with them also. Certain races.
Certain races of the Bigfoot or
Of the aliens.
Okay.
Of aliens.
We'll put a we'll put a pin in the aliens. And what was the other one you said that enslaved them?
Oh, elders.
The elders. We'll come back to those. But I wanted to focus on the Sasquatch themselves. Let's talk about their anatomy. I mean, this is something that in all the reports, the podcasts, people that I've talked to and interviewed and witnessed myself, this is the easy piece. So here comes some softballs for you. Describe for us the physical characteristics of like their heads and their bodies. Are they?
I've seen ones with, more hybrids look more like us.
Okay.
Sasquatch, more hairier, thicker looking. Bigfoot, more hairy, more human looking.
And so when you say more like us,
facial structure is more like us. But a hybrid too they look more human too.
And then what about like the tops of the head? Some say they're rounded like
I've
ours.
seen ones that are rounded. I've seen ones that are cone shaped. I've seen ones that are cone down. Different types.
And then like the brow ridge.
Oh yeah, always a thick brow.
Even the ones that look like us for the most part.
Yes, but it's more flattened feature.
Okay. When you mean like in profile flat, like
Yes,
versus
like
sloping back.
Um,
I'll take off my hat. You can see my.
More protruding brow.
Okay.
So the eyebrows are more flattened.
Oh, the brows. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then what about the hair on their head?
More structured, I guess.
All right. And then what about the hair on their heads? Is it longer?
Black. On Bigfoot or Sasquatch? Sasquatch has longer hair.
Oh, okay. So they're Bigfoot and Sasquatch are different.
Slightly.
All right. And so longer hair. And then what about their skin?
They have more animalistic features to them.
Like
than
more
the Bigfoot.
more ape-like, would you say?
Yes.
Okay. And then what about their skin? Like the skin texture, color. What can you tell us about their skin?
Real thick. It's real thick.
Because when you were a kid and played with them, you would have like touched the, felt that. And like, is their hair oily, or like, what's their hair like compared to a dog?
Their hair had like an oil base to it. I was always wiping my hands after on my clothes, touching them. And when I went home, my mom was like, "What the hell were you in?" She always thought I was playing in somebody's garage or something.
Yeah.
They always had some kind of grease stuff on me.
Now, do they all have a smell?
Not all of them.
And I mean, and can they create a smell like a skunk does that's like more potent than their natural
The
smell?
ones that are eating more
Smell.
crunchy kinds of food are the ones who smell more like that.
So like skunk cabbage?
I guess the more woodzier and dirtier they are, and the places that they go for food are more dirtier.
Yeah, because I've read a lot of different people's ideas on that, and I'm not sure. I've only smelt one and encountered one at the same time, and I thought that I smelled the same smell again just last year, but I didn't have an encounter at that time. But it took me straight back to that childhood memory of that smell, and it was like a wall. I mean, it was something that even growing up with siblings, and passing gas on one another, baked beans, eggs. Yeah, well, and this is the thing, again, from various stories, most of the time, the majority of stories don't have anything to do with smelling them. So, again, I was curious from your perspective if they, and based on what you've told me, now I understand about the size, overall size, like the slimmer ones then would be hybrids?
Yes.
Okay. Because I see a lot of weird pictures that just look like, people to me with, weird costumes on.
I have a lot of dogmen around here that are more hybridish dogmen than regular dogmen.
And I've never seen one of those yet. So, again, we'll put a pin in the dogman because I'm probably going to want to come back to that with you in another conversation. Other than the obvious, are there physical differences between the sexes?
The females, they're more thicker on top around the chest area, especially if they're breastfeeding.
Like thicker, like in terms of like front to back, like thick that way, or shoulder wise thick, or like overall barrel shape-ish, like Patty in the Patterson film. A lot of people like compare all Bigfoot sightings.
That's a female.
Yeah.
That's a female. She had breasts.
Yeah, and but her upper body was also very barrely, very muscular, very thick. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the top half of their, I guess, breast area would be more bustier.
Now I often hear that
Only if they're breastfeeding, though.
Okay.
I've been went down to Beacon, and I've seen thinner ones, skinny, female, no chest.
Now I hear often
Children.
that the males appear like V-shaped from the shoulders to their waist. Is there a difference in that with the females? Do they have a different shape going from their shoulders to their hips?
Yes.
How would you describe that difference?
More shorter, stockier in the breast area.
Shorter and stockier there. Okay. And then what about their waists?
Rounder butt area.
From which angle? The front, side, both?
That's hard. That would be hard.
But overall more volume, is that what you're saying? More volume to their buttocks? Their rears?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Again, other than the obvious, are there differences as they develop from childhood into adulthood? Are there anatomical things that you noticed, like the way their feet are, their hands, or other features of their face, or anything?
From each one, every one I see is different.
But do you think there's differences? Like, for instance, in humans, when we're babies, we have that little soft spot on the top of our heads that as we get older, that fuses. Our bones inside of us, they tend to have a lot of cartilage, and then that cartilage turns to bone over time. I've heard at least one report where people have seen the younger ones and noticed something weird about the way their feet bend or the way the pads on the bottom of their feet look. Is there anything like that stood out to you over time where the bottom of their feet look different even?
Well, yeah, because they're still growing.
And
They haven't reached their development yet. Their full potential.
Okay. And then last question about their anatomy. Can you tell us about their senses, their eyesight, their hearing, their smell, their taste, touch? Like, are they similar to ours?
It's all heightened. It's all heightened. Like 100, I would say 1,000 times heightened.
Because it appears that they have, like, either their ears are missing or covered with hair, but their ears seem smaller, and we have these to collect the sounds that we can hear from 20 hertz up to 20,000 hertz for most of us. And I've been wondering, at least, other than their eyesight, I've often wondered about their hearing, whether they can hear really well, because when they vocalize, they seem to make very loud noises, and I'm wondering if they were hard of hearing, or if that's why I was curious about with their hearing in particular.
The calls have to reach a further distance.
Because they're farther apart when they're communicating.
Yes.
And a lot of people also report when they see them up close how wide that their lip is lower from their nose than ours. Is that true for some of them, all of them, or what's your experience been with, like, where the?
Not all of them.
So some of them.
I've seen the ones that have very flat faces. I've seen ones that have protruding chins, protruding lips, fat noses. They all look different.
Now, the nose is always described, I've got a big check nose, but the nose is often described as being kind of like somebody's been punched in the face a lot of times. And the nostrils, tend to point down. Have you ever seen any where their nostrils, like with a gorilla, kind of point up, or more like a pig, I guess, like that their nostrils looking, at them would look, that they turn differently? Now, would you say that is that like a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, a hybrid? Is there a difference that way, or what's your experience?
Maybe the age.
So with age, like the older they get, the more they roll up, or?
Yeah, they all have distinguished looking markings or different looks.
Oh, okay, I see.
I've never seen one that looks alike, ever.
Like, more or less the same as us. You don't see a lot of similarities. We have similarities, but each one of us is unique, in terms of how we look.
I've seen two that looked kind of similar, but then when I looked at them again, I was like, nah.
Were they younger ones?
No, No, they were adult size, but
Oh.
I thought they were maybe twins or something. But then I really got a better look at them, and I realized, no, they didn't look alike at all. Like, one had a droopier face, the other one had, like, bigger eyes. So.
Now, one last question about the eyes. I've only seen eye shine once, actually very recently, and the eye shine that I saw was white, and we talked about this before this interview. When you've seen them, I mean, are they like us? Do they have, brown eyes, blue eyes, green eyes, auburn eyes? Tell us about their eyes. Like, when you've seen them, what do they look like? And then also maybe address this idea that they reflect different colors or that they glow. Can you address just the eyes a little bit deeper?
Well, the smaller ones, they had regular child-looking eyes to me. Like, it was kind of like looking in the mirror only, but I thought I was looking at somebody, like
even like the whites of their eyes, that part, the part that's not the dark. Because a lot of people say that.
White. I've seen ones that have white eyes, yellow eyes, red eyes. I've seen them glowing, going to cloak, but not cloaking at all. Just like using the energy to cloak, but then it's like they stop. It's like they were gonna do it before I got to them, but then they decided, oh, well, she saw me already, why bother?
I see.
So that happens to me when I take night walks a lot.
And again, skin color. What skin color did they have different skin colors like we do?
Well, the younger ones, they had like a natural pigment tone to them, like a child would.
Okay, so like a human flesh colored hue. Pinkish a little bit. I always hear people talk about kids as pinkish skin.
Not our color, but a different color.
And then the adults?
I would distinguish their looks from their age. You could tell just by looking at them, oh yeah, they're young. That one's older.
Now, what about their hair? The colors. I've heard people say they see their hair looks wild like an animal. Other times people have said it looks like it's perfectly groomed, like they just were getting ready for an audition in a Hollywood movie. And the same thing with their teeth. I hear that their teeth are grody and yellow and rotten, and other people like perfectly white and bigger than ours and peg-like.
I think it depends on what they're eating also and their ecosystem.
So that's
what they're eating, where they're living, how they groom themselves.
I'm going to get to that momentarily. All right, so let's leave the anatomy.
I've left brushes as gifts and come back and they're gone. And I know that, an animal didn't pick up and walk away with a brush.
You mean
And I've gone to spots where I know nobody else has been.
Yeah. How about tell us about how do they move? What different forms of locomotion do they move? Other than the fact that it's fast, or they tend to stand still. Stealth.
Stealth in their movement.
Have you seen? I mean, now when you played with them, you guys played in lots of different ways. Rolling around. You said probably wrestling around a little bit. But what about did you see them? Obviously everybody that sees a Bigfoot or thinks that they've seen a Bigfoot sees them, in the traditional walking on two legs. Did you ever see them on all fours, going on knuckles, on their palms? And did you ever see them in a position where they're basically like really close to the ground, moving in that way?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to us about that? Because I've only seen them walking. I've never seen them in any of the other positions, but I've heard many other people's accounts, and I certainly believe them. And I just wondered, what are the different ways that you've seen them move?
If they're about to charge something or go after something, or if they have to get away quickly, yeah, they get on all fours. Definitely.
So they move. Do they move faster that way, in your experience?
They're stealth.
Yeah. Sometimes they just
Extremely.
drop down and disappear that way, though, too.
Yeah,
Like,
they're gone.
yeah. It
And
seemed.
that's why a lot of people are mistaking them as bear.
Yep.
Because they're on all fours.
Have you seen them? Have you ever seen them swimming, jumping from tree to tree? You know, brachiating, where they swing from branch to branch. Have you ever seen any of that kind of activity?
Yeah. Not the bigger ones, but the smaller ones.
Tell me about the swimming. I'm a swimming and diving coach, so aquatics are my thing, and I'm curious, like, do they do the freestyle stroke? Do they do the breaststroke? Well, how do they swim?
I've never seen them swimming, but I've seen them in the water.
Oh, just playing in the water?
Yeah, going for food or whatever, or just hanging down by the water.
I have a friend where I've got my game cameras, and he told me a story of encountering what he thought was two young ones once playing in a pond. I was curious, what have you ever seen them playing together in the water?
Just the young ones.
Yeah.
Just the young ones.
And do they? How do they play? Just to give me an idea, because I want to try to compare it to what he
Just
saw.
like regular kids.
Yep.
Goofballs.
Just splashing around, trying to dunk each other.
More like an instigation with each other.
I got it.
Always trying to one-up on each other.
Typical childhood behavior.
Yeah.
What about the trees going, or jumping? Like, again, some people have reported these things jumping through the air 20, 30 feet, yard. I mean, I've heard various incredible distances. Again, I've only ever seen them walk away. And again, even in walking away, they're taking large strides and they're gone.
Well, when they go up a tree, they're on all fours climbing.
How about, do they go when they go between trees, do they reach out, grab it like an orangutan would and slowly move over, or do they fly through the air like a gibbon? Like when gibbons go, they can go 30 feet through the air and grab another branch.
I don't know, I've never really seen that.
Haven't seen that? That's what I was wondering. I'm curious because I've heard people say they were there and then they're gone, but I often wonder if they're gone up into a tree and the people just were looking in the wrong place.
I think a lot of times they're just sitting right there, cloaked. Also,
and just
I can sense when they're there.
yeah. How do you know when they're there? What's the sense you get?
Yeah, so I get feelings and gut feelings, and I'm psychic and clairvoyant, telepathic. So I automatically get like a gut instinctive feeling. My gut is never wrong.
All right. I wish that I had that.
That's why I can tell when I go some area that, oh, I shouldn't go down that area. I'll know. No, that's not a good idea.
Okay.
I'll get a feeling about it.
Now, let's talk about their social systems. What social systems do they have? Like families, you mentioned clans, or other social structures. Do females move between groups? Who's in charge? Just, and I have some specific questions, but I'll let you...
Leaders. This clan leaders.
Are they women? Are they men?
Men.
I mean, males or females? I shouldn't say women or men. They're not us, but...
Females are the leaders when the men are out, when they're out hunting, when they're on their hunting parties. That's when the females protect the young. Just like any other family-oriented household.
So, would you say that in a family, in a household,
They're a family unit. Family unit.
and so, well, I'll come back to that. So I'll ask some specific questions.
With others that are clan-like to them too, like they do fight with other clans.
For what, like territory?
Domination,
Females?
females, food, territory, just like us.
Now, does that happen whenever, or is there certain times of the year? Like with a lot of animals that hunters go out hunting, it's called the rut, the time where they're, the males are fighting one another to try to get access to females, for instance. And so they typically make hunting season, right around those times of the year. Is there anything like that with them where they've got a certain time of the year where they go into, a rut, or is it just happen whenever they have to move and change? Does it happen more for resources other than mates, like food resources, ecological resources, or, I mean, what's your experience been with the ones that you've known?
For food, they go where the resources are going to be most abundant, and then where they could stay a long period of time without having to up and leave with their young and start over somewhere else.
Well, other than
They
us,
do that anyway, but they try not to.
well, I would think it seems to me that there's a huge the main overlap when I look at maps of habitats is with bear. Like wherever I see that there's a bear habitat, I see that there's a Bigfoot habitat. Everywhere where I've encountered a Bigfoot, there are also bear in those areas. Whether not necessarily at the same time, obviously, but they're there. And so how do they, if they compete with one another, then they're also competing with bear because they're eating the same food resources, right? I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Where do they live? For instance, do they live under the oceans, in lakes, inside of dormant volcanoes? Where do they live?
Definitely in volcanoes, dormant, any kind of cave structure. Yeah.
So like lava tubes.
Underground, they burrow themselves underground. I've seen ground bomas, like bigger than houses, where you could just walk up, look right through, not see a damn thing, but then you know that it's underneath. There's something under there.
And is it some kind of a weird like trap door where they like, lift a tree? Like I've always pictured them like pulling a tree over, and the root system comes up. The family goes in. The large male or whatever then comes and drops the tree back into place, and everything looks normal on the surface to any passerby. But then they've got a way to. Yeah.
So a lot of times when you walk up, they could be right there, but they're just close.
Makes it hard to find them.
Yeah.
One of the things I've never seen a picture of, and I'm wondering if you've ever seen them do this, especially when you were, when you were younger and you played with them, but even since then, in the different clans that you've been around, have you ever seen them like shave or groom each other or comb each other, brush each other? Like every other primate, I always see them like socially like picking, bugs and eating them out of each other's hair. But with Bigfoot, I've never seen that behavior or heard anybody see that behavior. And that strikes me as like one of the major differences when people try to say that they're an ape.
The females do it to the young.
Okay. And so they do like pull bugs or ticks or, things.
Yeah, they do groom each other.
Now their skin's thicker though, and they must not get, bit as much as we do by such, the insects. They don't. I would think that if their skin is more of a hide, then they probably don't
They
get.
have an oil to their skin, so a lot of things just
Don't bother them.
them. Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that, like, my other thought on this is every time I've been out, like, looking for Bigfoot evidence or trying to, research or investigate an area,
the protective oil that any other animal would have on them.
I always get poison ivy or poison sumac or poison oak, and they must not get that unless people see them itching all the time.
Yeah, I don't get it. I can't get it either. I can lay in bushes of it and I can't get it.
Wow.
My mom, you can get it if the wind blows our way.
That's me.
But I can't get it.
Yeah, I've got to be careful when I'm out. Now, what I'm wondering then is, again, if they've got a thicker skin, here's one of the things that I've heard people report, though, about them, and I'm wondering, again, what your experience or knowledge is of this. It doesn't seem to me that, like, a lot of insects probably bother them, because, people don't see them shooing mosquitoes or flies away typically. I haven't heard those stories, and they go right in and eat bugs and stuff. But what I'm wondering is that sometimes they're seen and they look, like you said, health and diet play a big part in this, but a lot of times people see them and they look really mangy. Do they suffer from mange, or is there some kind of, psoriasis?
In the areas that they're in, I guess, and I guess their habitat of living.
Yeah.
Depending on where they live, if they're even with a clan.
I'm going to get to that because that's in this set of questions about like getting kicked out and things of that nature.
Yeah, there's ones that have been kicked out. They're on their own.
Now,
they live at the edge of, the territory, and yeah, they keep to themselves.
Now, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it for the audience. Do the Sasquatch or the Bigfoot, do they name themselves, or are they named by others? Do they have?
They're named by their family.
Yeah, and
just like us.
What do you know any of their names? I mean, you've known some of them over the years now.
I know some names, and I've named some myself.
Oh, okay. And they're okay with that? They're okay with you giving them names?
Yes.
What about family names, like surnames, like we have, like our last names? Do they have family names?
I don't know.
And then what about like their clans or their tribes, their ethnic groups? Do those larger groups have some kind of a name or a title, or is it just simply they all know one another because they're in the same areas?
There's always a higher clan that's the leader of all the clans in an area. There's always one that's higher.
Now, I guess my question then is, does that clan leader become the leader in an animalistic way or in a more human way? Do they do it through a democracy, or do they do it through like proving themselves?
Democracy doesn't exist in their time.
Okay, I didn't think so. So it's the king of the mountain then.
Yeah.
Whoever the toughest.
Who's got more pull? Who can get more? Who's got more females?
More resources.
Who's got the most children? Who
Okay.
can get what they want?
Now, beyond the clans, you mentioned earlier that they probably can talk with one another through their minds. Do they have even larger groups? Are there nations of Sasquatch? Like, is there a U.S. nation, a North American nation, like continental groups versus the worldwide population of these? Are they all one nation on Earth, or are there nations on other planets? How does their larger, like with humans, as far as we know, our population is here on the planet, and then we've got political nations. What do they have that's bigger than a clan? That relates them all to one another? Elders. And now, are the elders also Sasquatches, or are they that other type of being that you mentioned earlier?
It's another type of a being.
Okay, so we'll come back to that then. I'll put a pin in that again for now. Do they have gatherings? And if so, why do they gather? What do they get together for?
Celebrate the deaths. They celebrate their new friends with new clans. They celebrate the birth of new members. They're not much different from us, but they are different from us.
And I think you just answered this, but I just want to ask it just to make sure in case there's any nuance that I missed. Do they have social laws or punishments? That is, do individuals take on roles in their society like judge, jury, executioner, etc.? Do they have roles within the clan that they, when they have these gatherings?
Yes.
And is that something that they're taught, like, from the time that they're young? And, like, for instance, avoiding us?
Elders make the rules.
Do you know any of the rules? Have they ever shared any with you?
No, I've never asked. I've never asked.
And they probably don't just willingly or just freely share information if you don't ask, huh? Do they have anything like a political or an economic system? Like, do they have anything like money, or like when we talk about resources, it's simply females. So in that sense, it's more like other primates, where the resources that matter are mates, food, shelter, water.
Who's got the most is the leader.
All right. Are they monogamous or promiscuous in general?
That doesn't apply to them.
So when you say a family group, is it more like I don't know if you're familiar with the difference between like chimpanzee troops, gorilla groups, the different like great apes that are more closely related to us. Do they tend to have like the alpha males, but the betas still try to mate with the females? How does it work? If they have a family unit, what does that family look like? Is it like one male with several females and all their kids?
It's sometimes.
So then that would be a lot like the chimpanzees would be.
Sometimes, yeah.
And the gorillas, actually. Okay. Let's talk about reproduction. Let's talk about sex. Before you know it, when do they reproduce? And is it sexual in nature? No.
I don't know.
Do you know anything about their reproduction or their sex lives?
I think you froze.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, do you know anything about their reproduction or their sex lives? Like, do they have sex for pleasure, just procreation? Do they pleasure themselves? Have you ever seen and run into them?
I have no.
Nothing about their sexual orientations, homosexuality.
No.
What about gender identities and roles? Like when you've been around the parents and the kids, are they raised to be boys, raised to be girls?
I've never seen anything that would coincide with any of that.
Okay, I've read some accounts. There's actually a really good I think it's a really good documentary out. I don't want to plug it right now, but I'll say the name of it, but I have nothing. I'm not involved. I'm not getting anything for saying this. But there was a book, and I think it's called The Creature, and it was written by an anonymous author who lived in the southern part of my home state, Pennsylvania, on the border, down by the Mason-Dixon line. And then they just made a documentary. I think it's on Netflix. It might be Amazon Prime, but it's called Mountain Devil 2. It's the second. The first one was another one. Was about a story of a real person story and their real footage. This one was, there was no real footage, but it was all based on that book by an anonymous author. And in that book, what they didn't include in the film, there's a description of this guy who's befriended one, and it's kind of like playing with itself one day, and then it takes off, and he hears this commotion in the field across the way, and he comes out to see it raping a cow. And there are subsequently then, other than that, again, anonymous story that was written, I've heard people tell stories about their horses having hand marks or claw marks on their hindquarters and midsections, cows, horses, and in fact to the point where some of the horses' hair was braided afterwards. Do you know anything about, again, like I don't want to, if you've not encountered that or been exposed to it, I'm just putting it out there that's why I asked those questions.
I've never seen it, but I know somebody who came home and their horse hair was braided, and they freaked out, and they immediately undid it, and they were freaked.
Wondering who had done it, who's been to my house and braided my horse's hair. Probably not thinking that it was a Bigfoot.
To a horse to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Again,
Without getting kicked.
kicked. Exactly.
Yeah.
If they don't know you, they're not going to let that happen. All right. Before I ask the next question, I need to ask this question. And I don't really need to ask this question. You mentioned it earlier, but you said that there are different Bigfoot creatures. You said there's some hybrids, and there's different types. You mentioned a difference even between the Sasquatch and the Bigfoot, and you mentioned the elders. What about other non-Bigfoot creatures? I think you mentioned the Dogman. I've heard of the Menehune in Hawaii, the ancient ones you mentioned earlier, the star people. What other beings have you ever had any communication or experience with any other type of being besides the Bigfoot or Sasquatch people?
Yes. Cryptids, aliens.
Have you seen them, or have you just had them in your mind talking to you?
I've seen them.
Can you tell us about like an experience you had with one or more of those briefly?
I was just walking in the woods, going to one of my spots when I looked up and saw it.
What was it? What did it look like? It obviously wasn't a... Huh?
I don't know. It was alien. But it took off real fast.
Yeah.
It made eye contact and then it was gone. I must have spooked it.
Since you encountered at least one other being in the forest, do you know how those other beings interact socially or reproductively with the big feet? You mentioned something earlier about the Nephilim, and you mentioned something about the Nephilim mating on the planet with different animals, different beings. Now, what about, again, were they also mating with non-terrestrial beings, like, for instance, aliens?
Yes.
All right, and tell me about, like, how you know about that.
That gets into the quantum physics thing.
Okay. Let's put a pin in that one, because I think I want to do like another interview sometime with you about these other things, and I just kind of wanted to make sure I was making the full connection with, if we call these Nephilim, who and what they were breeding with, and my suspicion was it wouldn't just be the creatures of this planet, it would be any visitors to this planet.
Other visitors from other dimensions, yes.
Okay.
Many of them.
Now, if we were taking an elder, or if we take a Sasquatch versus a Bigfoot versus a hybrid, how do they feel about the others, the mixed ones in their society? Are they equals? Are they enemies? Are they competitors? It doesn't just have to be the various breeds or hybrids of the Sasquatch and Bigfoot people. It could also be the dogmen. Like, how do they consider one another in societal, like, hierarchy?
Dogman's very sneaky. Dogman is the guard. Dogman is the one that does most of the killing.
And Bigfoot gets blamed for it often.
Many times.
So they have a relationship then, dogmen and Bigfoot, like a social relationship.
Yes.
But do they interbreed?
They're like con artist buddies together.
And so would that make dogmen another type of Nephilim offspring? Like, what's your sense of what the dogman is? Obviously, you have a definite sense of what their role is, but what's their relationship then with big two?
They're more like the guards. They're just more like a guard. They're a different level.
Let's talk about communication. How do they communicate with one another, with others besides you, or with us? I mean, I've heard them. I don't know if they're communicating with me or with others, because I don't know what they're saying. Like, for me, the vocalizations or the things that I've heard don't make sense. The visions in my dreams seem like they've got a message, but I don't know if I'm not sure what they mean. Now, you're an empath, and they've spoken with you. How do they communicate with each other, and is it the same way that they communicate with you and with other beings?
The same way.
Same way.
Same way, telepathic, and they do talk to each other, but it's not a language that we can really interpret as a language that you can really understand.
Okay. But it is a language.
I've heard them talk and say things. Like, I would start to understand, but then I'd be like, what the hell? You know, like, that didn't even make any sense. Like, it was starting to be a sentence of something, but it was nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it really didn't make a damn sense at all.
Pure gibberish.
Like, I didn't even understand. Yeah, just gibberish. Like, and then have like a giggle or something to it. Like a guy just talking and then not making any, like a drunk guy talking, not making any sense, and then saying to myself, what the hell did I just hear?
That
Like, it didn't make any sense at all.
That description I've heard a lot.
Like a newborn talking, trying to talk, and then not knowing what the hell they were saying.
Yeah. I've heard drunk, I've heard crazy, I've heard, gibberish. Let's
I have one on video, one of my videos at night where they came into the porch when I was gone one night, talking.
Well, I would love to hear that one.
I gotta find it. I gotta go through some of my videos, but
Please, please post that one.
I went out, came back, played it, and said, who the hell was that? Like, and there's nobody on my camera. But they were in my porch. So they would have had to go past my camera to get into my porch.
Mm-hmm. And that's why so many people often confuse, maybe I'm wrong, but to me it seems like a lot of things that are that go on the books as a haunting or some kind of a ghostly thing are actually these things because they make sounds and you can hear them and floors creak and porches make noise when they're there, but you don't always see them. And that's why I think a lot of times people think that my house is haunted, these things are, there's a ghost banging on my wall. I think it's them.
I do the paranormal stuff with some of the people on YouTube, and I'm a moderator, so of course I'm on when they're on going into the woods, but right away I see squatch, Bigfoot, hybrids, and I'll be sitting there telling the guy, dude, that's not a ghost.
That's
It's a Bigfoot
that's
or a squatch or something. It's not what you think. Like, I pick it up right away because I could see it right away.
That's what I thought.
So they're like, huh? What are you talking about? I'm like, that's not ghost or spirit.
All right, some
And
quick.
then the camera would be all glitchy or something,
Mm-hmm.
and then just lose signal or whatever. I said, they don't want you there.
And
They
they.
don't want you filming there.
Let's talk about before we get into those aspects of the Sasquatch people that aren't what other animals that we know do. Let's talk about their life history from birth to death. Do they give birth alone? Do you know anything about the birthing process with these people?
The females, there's always the females together with the females.
Okay, but there's not like a doom. What do you call them for humans? There's the doula. Is there anything like that? Somebody that assists in the birthing process, or do they're there for support and the mother?
Just support, but there's guards
The dogmen.
and other squatch.
Okay. They have breasts. I'm assuming that they breastfeed
Yes.
the infants.
Yes.
Some people report finding nests, above ground nests. Is that something that's related to the birth?
Those are baby kit. Those are baby bassinet cribs.
Okay. And they're built above ground, but they're usually built behind a fortress of huckleberry and on some precipice over a river. So, it'd be very hard to get to them while they're in there nursing. How do they keep the babies quiet, from making noise? Is just by feeding them? When other people are around, they can go quiet, but how do the little ones know to, newborns know to be silent?
Oh, they just, the parents just tell them. They know. Some of them they can't keep quiet, obviously.
Now, the caretakers of the young are the ones that give birth to them, or is it a community of females?
It's a community.
And what about like the adolescent males or the adult males? Are they involved in the child rearing as well?
They're more of like going out and following their elders.
Have you ever
Hands-on learning.
hands-on learning? That's my favorite. Now, do you know if they practice infanticide? In other words, if a new male, takes over and somehow, upsets the old male, does he kill off the offspring so he can make his own offspring with the female or females?
No.
They don't do that?
No.
How about the length of like their life cycles? How long are they, like when we're teenagers, that's about 8 or 9 years. How long are they juveniles? Let's say this. How long is it from the time they're born until they reach sexual maturity?
I'd probably say about a good 15 years.
So a little bit longer than us. Like
Yeah.
the females give birth around 15, their first births. And then how long do they live? Like what would you say their average life expectancy is compared to us?
I couldn't tell you that.
Now you've known some,
And their habitat and their ecosystem has a lot to do with it too.
but the ones that you knew that were young when you were young, have you been able to keep in touch with them? Are they basically at the same stage of life you are?
I've been trying.
But
I've been telepathically trying to
reach
send
them?
messages to reconnect.
yeah.
No, nothing so far.
Now-
I'm connecting with the new clans though.
Now you mentioned earlier
A lot of new clans.
up where you're at, yeah. And that's why I would definitely want to get up there and check your area out with you, because I can't see a lot of the things that you see or sense when you're sensing them. But I'm curious to see if the feeling that I've gotten, that I know and recognize when I've been around them, if it triggers the same time or the same way when you're sensing them or feeling them. Now,
I don't really go looking for them when I go out. I kind of sit and wait and they come out.
yeah,
I call them a little bit. I do a couple of whoops just to let them know it's like me calling them to come out.
yeah.
That's about it.
Now,
Sometimes I have a pistol with me, sometimes I don't.
do you know what the whoop means? Like, what does whoop mean? Is it like hello or come give me a kiss?
Just a call.
It's just a call.
a call to each other.
Like saying, hey, what's up?
Yeah. I yell, Heyókļa, which is in Indian means hey.
Uh-huh.
So I've heard that a lot, like them say that to each other.
What about
So
when they knock the trees? What does that mean?
That's just a warning to tell others that there's people in the area.
That's not a message for
Just a
us.
warning.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier that one of the reasons that they gather is because, like at a funeral, like if one of them dies, what do they do when another Sasquatch in the family or clan dies?
Take them back over
Over.
to their world. When they're crossed over, they bring them back over to their dimension.
So they don't bury them,
No.
and they
not
don't.
Here.
Other people say that they might eat them.
I guess it depends on
The relationship.
and if they were well.
Like had a good place in the community.
Yeah, if they were like, it depends on whatever kind of pedestal that
Reputation
they
that they had. I got
were
it.
on. Yeah.
Now their diet. What do they eat?
Everything.
And how often do they eat? They're so huge. I mean, it
They
seems
eat whenever they're hungry, just whenever they're hungry.
so. Like where you live, like you said, in about a month from now or so, it's going to start to snow. There's not going to be a whole lot of vegetables to eat anywhere up there. So do they store a bunch of food for the winter?
Plant foliage that they eat. They eat a lot of bark. berries, fish, human food, garden stuff. I've seen them go into gardens and take stuff out. I mean, there's cornfields all over around here.
And they just...
don't go hunt. There's no way.
Okay.
I mean, they eat pine cones too.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of nutrients in a pine cone.
Huh.
And bark. I mean, they can live off of bark all winter if they had to.
Now, do they eat? Do they?
Grubs under it.
Okay.
They make masks and things with it also. Like a lot of times you won't see them, but you'll see an eye, but it'll be like a mask or something. They wear masks. They wear things.
Huh.
Because
some people have said that they've...
Thing.
Yeah, well, and again, those might be the hybrids that still have like that human part of wearing clothes or wearing, camouflage. Do they have any...
Well, the ones that I see that wear hats, they're from the ninth dimension.
The hats.
Yeah, they are time jumpers from the future.
Huh. And they're big feet that wear hats. I've heard some stories of people seeing, hatted individuals, but I never... I'm going to have to do some definite research and reading on the dimensions, the 5th and the ninth, in particular after this conversation. Now, you said that they eat bark and things. Now, we couldn't do that. So what kind of, like...
We could if we had to.
We could? I know we could eat the Cambrian, which is the layer behind the bark that like just before you get into the center of the tree. But I was curious if they have any other adaptations that allow them to eat certain things, like that specialized gut system.
They can eat palm, part of palm from plants, certain trees.
And they can eat raw meat, which most of us can't do either.
Raw meat, and they make a lot of medicine out of different things too. Medicinal stuff.
A lot of reports that I've heard and read, they tend to is it true that they tend to prefer like the innards versus the muscles, like the people's gut piles? They'll take the gut pile, but they'll leave the deer behind. Is that something that you have seen or no?
I've seen them go after the heart and the heart and maybe the lungs and leave the rest. Now, I actually, one of the YouTube videos that I think you might have seen that I did was about a mystery of the chicken that was plucked completely. There was nothing left but the feathers, and the liver was there. There was no blood. There was just the liver, and the liver seemed perfectly cleaned. Do you know, like, why they might have left the liver behind? Like, that strikes me. Oh, or maybe it was a bad liver, or maybe they just dropped it. But it was so weird that everything else was gone. Likely a bad liver.
Okay.
Might have smelled funny to them.
All right. That makes perfect sense to me. Now, you mentioned that there's lots of farms and things around. Do you have any evidence, or do you know through them if they practice agriculture or animal husbandry or any kind of aquaculture, like setting up their own nets or anything to catch fish? Is there anything that they do to plant crops, raise animals?
I've seen deadbolt traps and things.
Now,
slings and snares. Yeah, I've seen things.
Okay. And you're feeling
bigger game animals, like maybe like a fox or like a deer or something. But a lot of them are friends with the deer too. Deer is like the deer is like a decoy, kind of like look at me, don't look at whatever else is around.
Because I've heard a number of stories, again, typically from hunters, where a deer will come running and cower at the human's foot while it's being pursued by the Bigfoot or a Sasquatch.
Yeah.
So it all depends on some of them have a benevolent or whatever relationship, almost like do you have any?
Some of them have a relationship, some of them don't. I think it's more that the dog man go after.
Yeah.
than anything.
What about pets? Do they have any pets?
Yes,
What kind of pets do they keep?
dogs,
Really? Like
dog pups,
huh?
pups.
Human like domesticated dogs or like wolves, coyotes?
I've seen wild dogs with them.
Huh? Because other
Wild,
people have too.
wild. I've seen wild koi dogs with them.
I've also read reports where people see them with large black cats.
Wolf.
And-
Yeah,
or,
I've
or
seen cats. I've seen cats, wolf,
okay.
koi dog. Yeah. I've seen deer with them. I've seen bear with them too.
Now, does anything prey on them? Are they afraid of anything that comes after them?
I don't think that they're really afraid of anything, but there's things that will go after them, yeah.
And those things would be alien in nature or angelic in nature?
Yeah, big animals. Big animals.
All right. I'll have to pick your brain about that one later. Last question about their eating habits. Why do you think that the Sasquatch, or do you think it's the Sasquatch? From what you just said, you might think it's the Dogman. Injure people, steal and kill farm animals, and take some hunters' kills. Why do you think that happens and people attribute it to Bigfoot?
Because, like I said, they're sneaky.
But some,
They give Bigfoot and Sus a bad rap.
because some people never have any issues with their animals, their barn, farm animals, and then others,
More associated with the underworld,
yeah.
so they're a little devilish and evil, more so.
All right, well, let's get into that. Let's talk about their intelligence and their cognition.
Very smart.
Intelligence has been defined in a lot of different ways. The dictionary definition is it's the capacity for logic, understanding, self-awareness, learning, emotional knowledge, reasoning, planning, creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving. You're saying that they are, in my experience, that they seem very intelligent. And why would you say that? Why do you think so?
They've managed to stay elusive all this time, for one,
Yep.
without being,
I agree.
boy.
I'm going to come back to a couple of those terms in this section, but wisdom is another word that we like to attribute to ourselves, and it means sapience or sagacity, and it's the ability to think and act using the knowledge, experience, understanding, common sense, and insights that we've had in our lives. Would you say that the Big Feet or Sasquatch are wise?
Yes.
So they share that wisdom as well?
Yes.
Now, you mentioned to me before that they use certain tools, and I've experienced very recently things being thrown at me, so I know that they use tools, I just don't know, and you mentioned your brush earlier. What tools do they use and why? For instance, some say that they can use fire, or again, that they throw things. What tools have you seen them with or seen them use or make?
Staffs. I've seen them with staffs. Rocks that are sharpened. Metal pieces that are sharpened or just sharp.
And then it was the rock,
Mostly staffs.
like as tall as them, like a wizard staff, or how big would you say the staff is? Arms off screen.
I guess it depends on the size of them.
Of them, and it's just a piece of wood that they've found and worn out. I mean, they don't have knives or anything to carve them, or do they use stones and things to kind of carve them?
They can use stones and things.
What about fire? That's kind of a big one in our evolution, and I wonder if they can make it, if they just use it, because people have seen them playing.
They know how to make fire with energy.
Okay, because people have seen them playing like in fire pits with the sticks and looking at the embers and the trailers that they leave.
Yeah.
Going back to the 1800s, I've read some stories about that. Now here's where I'm going to come back to some of the deeper parts of the intelligence and wisdom definitions and see what you think or what you've experienced. Because again, I know that in our last interview, at the beginning of this interview, when you talked about your childhood experience, they left you a rock that was like partially kind of shaped. Now,
Yeah.
are they artistic? They seem to make things out of rocks, trees, and other plants.
Yes, I would consider them carpenters.
Now,
Them.
now, do they? But again, as an artist, you're literally making things just for the aesthetic reason of it. Why do they do that? Like why do? I mean, we know we have many reasons why we do it, but why do they do it?
Just like any human who likes anything that's beautiful.
Just do it for the beauty of it.
It's they like shiny things. They like anything that's personal.
Like marbles, you mentioned. I think.
I've left them personal things, my hair, pictures of me, jewelry I've worn, anything that I've ever worn or used, I've left.
For them.
Like something that had like a, like a personal thing to me, I would leave them. Like anything I associated with, like that had a personal thing to me.
I'm gonna come back to that point of intention here before the end, because I think that there's something. I'm seeing that there could be a pattern, that there's something to that. And my last question about their intellectual, their minds, is are they spiritual? I mean, do they have organized religions? Do they believe in a god or gods? Do they have prophets? Do they know about our prophets?
They know about our stuff.
Do they have any of their own? Do they have belief systems of their own?
They have their own belief systems, but it's not like ours.
Have they ever shared that with you, or have you ever asked them about them?
Not really. I mean, I get bits and pieces of stuff. It's more of getting to know me.
Mm-hmm. And sharing yourself, like your intention with them. All right.
Yeah.
Now I want to, for the final piece here, I want to transition into some Sasquatch questions that fall more under their supernatural nature. Are you ready for those?
Yeah.
I don't think that you don't shy away from these kinds of things. All right. First, I've heard that this goes to what you've just been saying. I think I've heard that having deep compassion and respect for the Sasquatch is the key to meaningful interactions. Is respecting them and being compassionate.
Yeah.
What do you think about that statement?
Yes, that's why I don't go into certain places and bother them.
Because you don't have that relationship with them yet?
Not because I don't want to barge in on them. Like, it's a disrespectful thing to just walk into it.
It's
Somebody
like
else's home uninvited.
I feel like it's like some of my friends say to me, "You don't know me like that," you know.
Some places I feel very welcome, and some places I'm like, no, I don't think I'm gonna go in here because I don't know this area. I don't know them well. I don't want to freak them out, and I'll just sit and wait. And if they come out and show themselves to me, then I'm in.
Gotcha. Now here's
And I'll go back and leave them things to let them know that I'm their friend, and I will come back and see them. And I always do. I always come back, bring them stuff, whether it's food, myself.
When you've left them personal items, have they left anything in return, or is it simply like a tribute to them that you're giving out without?
I don't expect anything, so I don't really look for things.
Uh-oh. What if you hurt their feelings and they left you something?
Well, if they do, they do. I'm not a taker, I'm a giver.
Now, I've seen the show.
They've left me things before, and I've given them to the kids.
Okay. Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Or the kids will find them and say, Grandma, look what I found, and I know it was left for me.
Yep.
I'm like, take it, whatever.
So I've heard of the horse whisperer, and I've seen and learned about the horse whisperer, the dog whisperer. I think of you as a Sasquatch whisperer. when you get into those situations, who initiates the conversations, and what are the conversations like when you have an interaction, a conversation with the
I always
Bigfoot?
start first.
Yeah. Give an example of how you might start a conversation with them.
I'll just start talking to them, and then automatically it's no more talking, and it's all mine.
So when you say you start talking to them, you're speaking, like vocally,
Yeah, I'm speaking.
vocally in English words, and then suddenly you start to get a response back.
Yeah.
All right. Are those conversations on their end in English? Like, how do you
No,
interpret
not
them?
all the time.
Okay, but sometimes.
It's a feeling that you know what they're saying.
Now, do you ever hear words in English from them?
Yes.
Now,
Like I said, it's not anything that I could interpret all the time either. I've heard my name called, like I've heard my name called, walking through a woods with somebody else, and I kept saying my name, and then I've heard my name being mimicked back, like out of nowhere, like behind me or in front of me or just near me. I'm like looking around like, and there's nobody here.
now, when you've heard that, was it in another voice? Was it your voice, your friend's voice, or just some other voice?
It was another voice.
How do you feel while the conversations are happening? Do you get lightheaded, confused? You're not always asleep, but do you feel like you're sleepy? Like, what does it feel like when they're in your head?
Just a normal conversation with, like a spirit, like I'm talking to a spirit or something.
Well, I haven't, other than prayer, I haven't really talked to spirits, so what's that like?
I talk to spirits, so
And
I'm clairvoyant, so I do talk to spirits, and they do talk to me, they come to me. I get subliminal messages, I meditation a lot, so a lot of things will come through, like it'll just come bursting through.
now you said that you're a giver, so I'm assuming you've never asked them for anything, but have they ever asked you for anything?
Yeah, certain types of things, yeah.
Can you share any of those with us?
Um, Certain things that I brought them, they've asked me to bring back.
Like,
Like certain foods that I've made them. I brought them last year. I brought them some. I went up to HeyókÄ mines and brought back some like fool's gold. They like that.
shiny.
They asked me for more, and I brought them back. My sister went up and got some more for me because I couldn't get up there, but she had some, so she brought them over for me, and I bought those. And they were big chunks too. They weren't little.
Yeah. Now,
Fool's gold kind of looks so sparkly and shiny.
Yeah.
Kind of like glitters. Yeah.
and that's all I ever find. When I'm looking for real gold, that's all I ever find.
Yeah.
Now,
I have a spot up in HeyókÄ mine. I have a spot, like my name's on it and everything.
Oh, yeah?
So I can go up there and mine if I want.
oh, how hard is it to mine it out? Is it right there on the surface? You have to dig and sift and run water and everything?
Well, the water's already there. I mean, it's right out of the river. It's like a brook or whatever. The pan right there. You just have to have your area. You have to be in your designated area.
You might not know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you anyways. Why do they talk to the people that they choose to talk to, like yourself? Why don't they telepath with everyone and talk to those who want to talk back? Like, there are people out there that want to talk to them, but they'll never
There's people
know.
out there that don't believe in them either.
Yeah. And so, do you think that's a prerequisite? Is believing?
They know who is good and who isn't.
Like Santa Claus
Yeah. Or Krampus.
or Krampus. That's probably the
Yeah.
dog man, from what you've told
Yeah.
me.
I gotta switch chairs.
All right.
But yeah, they talk to me differently sometimes. Sometimes there's no words. I just get feelings.
Feelings. Yeah. So they have feelings. Now, biologically, psi communication confuses me, as we have sensory organs that the brain uses to paint our reality. When you hear them, are you hearing them in your ears, some part of your brain? How are we able to sense the psi that they're able to send? And how are you able to send them psi? What organ do you think is doing that? What part of your brain? Is it the pituitary gland? What is it that you think allows you to receive and send? There's got to be something in us. I mean, obviously they've got the ability, and you've got the ability to be, as an empath, sense that. So what do you think it is about you that might be biologically different than other people? Or is it not? Do we all have the equipment to do it? It's just a matter of, again, our intent and our belief in them.
Everybody has power to tap into abilities. Not everybody has the same abilities, but everybody has an ability that they can tap into. I just happen to have tapped into mine a long time ago. And I know how to control them.
Now, I want to learn more about what mine are, but I know there's...
My abilities are stronger than others. Some of my abilities are tested.
Patience.
Yeah.
All right, I got some...
I work on my abilities because they get stronger every day.
I'm going to ask you about a few of their other supernatural things quickly here. What is zapping or being zapped?
That's when they're pulling energy from you.
Do you, any idea what the source of that energy is? Electromagnetic, chemical?
Yeah, it's like a shock.
That's what people say. They feel it in their spine, and it tingles.
I've been zapped in my shoulder several times. They've been trying to fix my shoulder. They know that I have problems. I have dystonia in my shoulder and my neck. So they've zapped me several times. I've swerved a few times, but after a while it just goes back. Like if I lean over or lift something heavy, because I'm not supposed to do either one, but I do anyway. As soon as I do that, I knock it right back out.
For me, I felt...
It's all stiff, and then I can't move for several days. But then when I do go out, I'm like praying to God that they'll zap me again to fix it, you know?
Why don't you just ask them? Why don't you just ask them? Do they have shaman? Do they have healers? I'm sure they have, like...
Yeah, they have healers. I've never asked them to do anything, like... I'm not that way. I don't know.
I know. That's what you said earlier, so I was just asking.
Yeah.
Now, when I feel like I was zapped, the odd thing that happened for me was that I was disoriented. Like, I felt fine. I thought I was fine, but I ended up driving in a big circle through these mountains, and popped out where I started, and I couldn't believe it. And then for almost the next 2+ days, I had a headache that felt like it was in the middle of my brain, pushing out in all directions, which is not a normal headache. I mean, I get temporal headaches, I get sinus headaches, I get stress headaches in the back. This was in the middle of my brain, and I took every kind of pill, and it wouldn't do anything until finally I was saged. And once I was saged and saged under the hat and put my hat back on with the sage in it, it went away. And I have no idea how to explain that. And I wondered if that was part of getting zapped, or if they have some way of like using the psi or telepathy to kind of put you in a trance, or like a hypnosis, or paralyze you.
Yeah. It's the same thing as getting zapped.
Okay.
I felt lightheaded for a little while, but then once I was home laying down, I was fine. I didn't get a headache. My headaches left when my ex left.
Now, you mentioned cloaking. You mentioned cloaking earlier, like the Predator, you know, the movie. How do they do this?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think? Do you understand how they're doing it?
No, it's a supernatural thing from their dimension, so
Because I've often thought that it had to do with their hair.
It has to do with the tridents and the energy and plants Because plants are power too. Plants are alive, so it all connects. Wood is a big thing too.
Now, what are these tridents? I've been seeing a lot of them in videos.
There's structures around, like, our astrological constellations in their dimension.
And they're drawing in the power from those with the wood?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Because again, that's relating to some of the things I'm about to ask you, but the I've always thought it had something to do with their hair, and because their hair doesn't have pigment in the medulla, I thought that just allowed then wherever they're at different light. So if they're in the woods slightly, they're going to basically blend in because it's the hair is going to take on kind of the characteristics. You know, people talk about blob squatches or leaf squatches, and I really think that the leaf squatches have a lot to do with the hair, but they could also have a lot to do with what you're saying. If they're putting bark on their face and just allowing their eyes to be seen, there could be a number of reasons why we don't see them, but obviously there's the supernatural possibility of they have an ability that we simply don't understand yet. What about the orbs of light that people often see in the woods and other areas where Bigfoot sightings related? Are they related in any way, the orbs of light that are found in these woods?
Those are them cloaking in and out, and those are also spirits. They could be either or.
Either or, because the orbs that I've seen the pictures of, and now my game camera caught some pictures of these. They appear to be like slow moving, like really slow moving, but changing direction, like they have a purpose, or like they're on, like that they have intelligence. And so, if they're cloaked and there's a light showing, that's not helping them be cloaked, because then you can see where they're at. So I guess that's the piece for me. I haven't been able to put that together, if that's them or not, but it sounds like it could be more than one source, but one of those sources could be them going through the process of cloaking? Is that what
Yes.
you... Okay.
Yes.
Because
I've caught orbs out here, but I definitely think that it was my father and my grandmother.
Okay.
And the berries that are becoming, I think that has something to do with my family and my ancestry too.
Well, I know some people that have seen them, and again, seen like faces in them, or people, like people, ancestors' faces that show up, but again, I'm not sure, other than looking at the images and knowing that that's not normal. What about UFOs?
I have pictures of them in my car, and I know who they are.
Now, what about the UFO connection? Is there a connection? You mentioned earlier that there's the elders and the Nephilim. When I think of Nephilim, I think of celestial. I don't think necessarily of extraterrestrial. It could be, but where my mind goes is Nephilim, you know, spirits, demons, angels, celestial, and then biological type organisms, or organisms of energy that isn't that energy. I think of differently, and so I think of aliens as in that other group, not in the Nephilim group. So what's the connection to UFOs, if any, that you're aware of?
Other than the fact that our government has a treaty with them, and that they have been allowing them to abduct us for a long time. A long time.
But the UFOs and the Bigfoot, no connection?
They have been abducted as well.
I'm wondering.
I guess.
Yeah, because cows get abducted. Every animal on the planet seems, mostly cattle and us, but I'm assuming.
They've been used as slaves for them too.
Oh, for the aliens. Is it a particular group of aliens that they've?
Yeah, it's our race.
The Greys?
Mainly the Greys, which I don't know why they would do that, because they are us. The Greys are us. We are them. They evolved. That's what we evolved to in the future. That's us. That's us in the future, the Greys.
And somewhere in the
That's
future?
why they're experimenting with us now to find out what happened.
So something must be wrong with them in the future that they're coming back.
All the explosions and everything is what happened to them in the future, and they want to experiment and try to get back that DNA, that same DNA that they lost.
Before it was lost.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever experienced the Sasquatch people changing themselves or the nature around themselves, particularly things like the atmosphere, the air itself? Sometimes it seems as though not only do things go silent in the woods when I've been around them, like frogs, bugs, everything, but this most recent encounters that I've had, at least 2 of them, I really noticed that it seemed like, because I was in a hurricane, like those hurricane bands moving through in East Texas, and it went from, breezy and rainy to when I got into an area right before a tree got thrown at me or slammed to the ground to scare us away, it went...
They can manipulate the weather, I think.
Because it was as though the air stopped moving. Like the air itself stopped moving. It felt like I was in a dome of some sort, like that we were being bubbled, or that something was affecting my mind to make me like lose the sense of feeling. And so this is the supernatural part, folks. That
it was probably to get you not to be there and think about whatever you were doing, and to confuse you. Yeah.
It's funny because it worked, because my buddy and I were there to try to find evidence of them. Next thing I know, we're hiking down the path. It was a day later before I realized, why didn't we turn around and go and look for the evidence of that log that got thrown at us? And we're both scientists. We're both scientists. He's an Army Ranger, and I'm an anthropologist, and I didn't go looking for the evidence of the tree that got thrown to the ground.
They put you in a trance and had you going.
It was really weird. So, if they're interdimensional, could they just use their psi to move things and create other energies and vibrations in our minds to change our perceptions?
Yes.
What, in closing for this interview, what advice can you give me, who doesn't have the ability to do what you do, but wants to, seriously, in all seriousness, really wants to be able to communicate with these beings, wants to be able to have the interactions that you have, besides the idea of, like I said, wanting...
Try so hard. And let them come to you. You don't pick them, they pick you. I don't pick them, they pick me.
So if I were to go out in the woods and just sit?
Searching for them specifically in certain areas, I'll go back and check it. I go to different spots. Like, if they don't touch it, I'm not going to keep leaving stuff there. I've left enough there. I'll just go to a different area and leave it. And once they catch on that I'm not out to hurt anybody, but leaving them things, that's when they take it. They might not touch it the first time, but then they'll go back. I'll go back second, third, fourth time, and then it's gone. But they always take the marbles or the gifts first, other than the food. I think they're worried about some things.
Yeah, I would be worried about, people poisoning me.
I've left oranges, don't touch them. Go back, peel them and eat them while I'm sitting there, gone the next time.
Once they see you.
Me eat it and peel it.
Uh-huh.
I've left apples, don't touch the apples. Put candy on them or caramel, gone. Gone.
I've heard a few different things that people have used at gifting spots. Yeah.
I've left cheap crackers, don't touch them. Left Ritz crackers, gone. Cinnamon graham crackers, gone. Like certain things, they won't touch.
Interesting.
But other things, like I make peanut butter, chocolate, like granola white things, I put cranberries in them or whatever. Any dried fruit. And I'll mix it all up and make little bite-sized granola bars. Put them in a baggie, bring them down there, open the baggie so they can smell it. They're gone. Make peanut butter sandwiches or jelly sandwiches or honey sandwiches or whatever preserves I got. Gone. Like they're picky.
So the top 2 things that I could do to have an encounter would be to just go into the woods, leave leave gifts, but just sit there quietly and let them come to me? Is there...
Yeah. Or babble to yourself like I do.
I often talk to myself in the woods, especially when I'm making videos.
No, I'll laugh, giggle. They just come out. And I just start talking to them. It's hard to explain because it's been like that all my life. With everything, like I can go to the store and a cat will follow me home, or a dog will follow me home. So it's not just one type of animal either. I have that in everything.
Well, Valarianna, I'm out of time for today. We went a little bit longer, but I really appreciate you coming on and doing an interview with me. This is my first one, and so hopefully it'll turn out pretty good. And would you like to let the people know, like, how they can find you? Obviously, they're going to see that you're with Northway Squatchin, but is there anything you want to plug? Any of your social media?
My group, Glitches.
On Facebook.
I made you administrator. I don't know if you got that.
Yeah, I did it. I accepted that.
I'm on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook.
So Twitch, you're at?
It's Delicious.
Delicious. And YouTube? Northway. And I'll put those in the description below this video.
I have all my pictures on Facebook or in my regular page, not my group.
Okay. Do you want...
All my pictures that I post are in my regular page, under my albums.
I can...
Yours is there too, in your own album.
Oh, okay. Great. That's where I'll have to find... I'll take a look there. So, I will put all of your information in the description below. Again, I'll have you just text me whatever you'd like to share. And again, this is Carlos of the Chronicles of Carlos. And I thank you all for watching. And I look forward to seeing you again. And hopefully by then, I'll have a chance to share the results of trying out Valarianna's techniques of sitting in the woods and putting my intentions out there.
I'll show you a little better.
And I'm hoping to get an in-person tutorial with the master herself. Thanks again.
It's a little different wherever I go.
Well, thank you very much again for your time and for doing this with me. And I hope that we get to do this again.
Oh, definitely.
I look forward to getting up there and getting that first-hand experience with you.
I'm waiting.
All right. Will do. Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.